Please welcome Julie Neward to the No Show.
Hi. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me on the No No Show today.
I really appreciate that you're spending your time, and I'm grateful that we're doing something together. It's kind of going to be amazing and fun together.
It is. How long did this take us to do? This took a couple of years, right?
A couple of months,
Yeah. Yeah. A
not
couple of years
much.
to get on your show, but a couple
Yeah,
of years for us to finally align, I would say,
yeah.
because you're doing amazing work.
We both are on the state council too.
Yeah, that's how we met. Was
hmm
that the Regional Advisory Committee? That's where we originally met in the Bay Area under Sheridan Nicolau.
Yeah, I was there before with Gabriel.
Okay. Oh, wow. So you go way back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to start with a topic that people don't really know about that much about sexual assault in general. So I'm gonna go into the first question to get things started. So can you tell me about the Natalie project and the story behind it and why this is your passion in life?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Nicole, I always like to say before we dive into a hard topic,
Yes.
I need to let listeners and viewers know, there are this is a trigger alert because this
Yes.
topic is very sensitive. Some people may have lived experience with this subject, and need to mute or turn their video off or walk away during our interview. And so I do invite them to do that because I've been talking about this subject for well over 10 years, because of what happened to my sister, Natalie. And it's easy for me to talk about, unfortunately, but I know for many people it's a tough subject. So the Natalie Project, it has the namesake of my beautiful sister, Natalie. And our goal is to champion healing and systemic change for people with disabilities, and their whole family, their parents, their siblings, their grandparents, their aunts, uncles, cousins, who are really experiencing the trauma of sexual abuse, which is absolutely terrible. And unfortunately, it's of epidemic levels in the intellectual and developmental disability communities. So the Natalie Project, we have the hashtag us too, because we are like the Me Too movement, I would say, but there are some separate needs that we need to address in the community. But we were founded about 2 years ago, back in 2021, is when I was really able to organize and get the project moving forward. The story behind the Natalie Project is what you asked me. It's a hard story. And I still live it almost like it's real time to this day. It's truly my sister Natalie's trauma, but as her co-conservator, as her advocate, and as her sibling, as her sister, it weighs on me quite a bit. So April 2nd, 2012, I received a phone call that my sister Natalie was diagnosed with gonorrhea. And that is when my entire world changed. You didn't feel safe anymore. So I'm the oldest of 4 children. Parents lived in Northern California, and I have a sister named Natalie Rose, who's the second oldest. She's only 2 years younger than me. And just for a little bit of background and context, Natalie was born without disabilities back in August of 1982. And when she was 27 months of age, she fell into a coma, which left her brain damaged. And so her diagnosis is encephalopathy unknown origin. And when she fell into the coma, my mom was pregnant with my brother, who's the third child. And then I have a younger sister, Patricia, who's about 4 years younger. So ever since then, my mom was a head nurse in Walnut Creek, California, and she had to take an early retirement, and she took care of my sister and all of us children, and my dad ran his own business. And Natalie went to day program most of her life, and my family, my parents were super involved with Natalie, donating to her classroom. My mom would buy them a bus and they would all go to Marine World. I spent many, many summers volunteering, and we were heavily involved in her classroom when she was growing up. And April 2nd, 2012, my parents were divorced at the time. Natalie was only attending a day program in the East Bay. and she only lived with women in the home, which really meant that she was being sexually abused at this facility. Let me just share a little bit about how Natalie communicates. So Natalie communicates through her behavior and voice inflections. She doesn't use words to communicate, and she has a really steady routine. She gets up at a certain hour, has her medication, has breakfast. She would go on the school bus. She would go to her day program. She would come home by the bus, have a bath, have dinner, hang out, watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, and then go to sleep. And when we learned about Natalie's diagnosis, I was commuting from Walnut Creek down to San Jose. My career is managing shopping malls, managing retail real estate. And so I was commuting, and, I'll never forget my mom saying, "Hey, Natalie isn't sleeping. She's moaning at night." And moaning is how she voices her needs for to use the bathroom, or to have a snack, or that she's tired. And so she was moaning quite a bit, using different voice inflections. And she wasn't urinating in her, her adult underwear, like her diaper. So my mom would call me in the morning and say, "I'm not sleeping. Natalie is not sleeping. I don't know what's going on. She's sitting on her haunches." And that was for a couple months. And looking back, hindsight 2020, about for 6 months, Natalie's behavior did change. And a lot of things were going on that we just didn't read. We were ill prepared, and we didn't know. I didn't know that Natalie was in pain and suffering. So, and this is a trigger alert, but Natalie had blood in her diaper. We thought it was hemorrhoids, and it wasn't. Natalie had fecal matter in her armpit. She was also learning a new skill where she was trying to kiss us with her mouth, which is not like Natalie. And so ultimately what we were able to conclude is, at this program, somebody was alone with her, with access to her to take care of her hygiene needs, and they were taking advantage of her. And all the signs were there, and we couldn't read it. So I quickly did a Google search and came across a wonderful woman named Dr. Nora Baladarian of the Disability Without Abuse Project. And she's been my guiding light ever since. And she was really the only person who helped us. So Dr. Nora Baladarian has done amazing work and guided us through the process. And why? Because nobody else guided us. We tried to work with the regional center. I told the caseworker what happened. They sent me an email. I worked with my supervisor on other options for supports, and that's as far as it went, despite this being suspected sexual abuse. Nobody filed the mandated report. The executive director at the facility, the late executive director at this facility, she told us that she wished that we didn't reach out to the police to investigate the crime that had happened. And the facility settled, and the money was gone within a couple of years. And unfortunately, the system is the same. My mom and my younger sister, Patricia, kept Natalie home for 4 years straight without any supports, nothing, until I advocated randomly at a self-determination meeting. And another program raised their hand and said that they would give Natalie a one-on-one support until COVID happened. And after COVID, we all know what happens. The care dropped off. So the fuel behind the Natalie Project, us too, is the fact that nobody treated this like a crime, and we're still healing, and there still isn't justice. And so I really want, Nicole, the viewers and the listeners to understand we have to address this issue. So a couple of years ago, Joe Shapiro, an investigative reporter with NPR, National Public Radio, released a series called Abused and Betrayed. And Natalie's story is in there under She Can't Tell Us What's Wrong. And that's when I learned all the devastating statistics. And it's really unfortunate, Nicole, but people with disabilities have 7 times the sexual assault rate than of those without disabilities, and over 90% are sexually assaulted during their lifetime. And I really don't think enough is being done about this. I've been very vocal for several years. And what I can tell you right now is it's really with families to get educated on the issue, to be made aware of the issue, and to really demand better from the system.
Can you tell me the passion in your
Yeah.
life with all of that?
Yeah, so I would say I'm a unique individual. I'm very angry, very upset about what my mother had to endure, my sisters had to endure. I'm really ticked off that the system that's in place to protect my sister, the system, the place where she went to protect my sister, did not protect her and did not advocate for her rights. She does not have the right of safety, nor does my sister have the right of justice. And so my passion comes from the simple fact that, I'm a campaigner personality. I love my sister so much. And I want my sister to have the best quality of life that she can have, right? And I'm incredibly angry and upset that, her life and her freedoms were stripped away by somebody who assaulted her. We are very, very scared about sending her back out into the community under the support of people outside of the family. So she just got into the self-determination program, and our younger sister Patricia is now her staff. And Patricia takes Natalie out in the community. She has a gym membership. There's money in the budget for therapy, music therapy, art therapy. We're looking into water therapy. But I as a sibling, and I think it's important to mention this, Nicole, that I have another nonprofit called the California Sibling Leadership Network, which is for the adult siblings of people with disabilities, because at some point my mom will no longer be able to take care of Natalie. And so it's up to my sister, brother, and I to go ahead and have supports put in place. And when this assault happened, and we learned Natalie was a survivor, I Googled and I found the Sibling Leadership Network, and there wasn't a chapter yet in California. So I'm a co-founder because who am I going to trust when my mom's no longer around to help me live my life? I'm married. I have 2 little girls who are 6 and 10. I have a career. And how do I make sure that Natalie is safe while I live my life and support my family? I love my sister and will do anything for my sister.
So I have a question about that too. Also, can you tell your personal journey with your sister, your bond and love for one another? How did you get through the sexual assault against your sister, and how that changed your life?
Yeah. She's my sister. And I've had a sister with disabilities for 41 years, right? So that's the life I know. My life is having joys with Natalie. So I didn't go to college too far away. I went to St. Mary's, and she lived at home in Walnut Creek, and I would pick her up on the weekends to give my mom a break from all the caregiving. And I would take Natalie in the car and we'd go to San Francisco. And I would have the windows down, the music on loud, and we'd go to breakfast. And it was actually like some of the best times of our life. So we have a very special bond, and I've always been her caregiver, but more than that, I'm her sister and her protector. And I think many siblings feel that way. Getting through the sexual assault was very traumatizing and very hard. My sister doesn't know how to open a door yet. So maybe there'll be some supports in place to help with her with that. If my sister gets into a hot bathtub, she'll just stand in the hot bathtub and not be able to tell you it's hot, take me out. So, my sister needs 24/7 supports. And I, as her older sister, will always be there for her as her care manager and a care provider. And knowing that Natalie is a survivor of abuse, I have a lot of distrust in the system, a lot, and I question it. And I want to fix the system. I want people with disabilities to be safe wherever they go, right? I want people to be able to go out in the community and not worry about being a victim of a crime. And if you are a victim of a crime, Nicole, I want you to know that you can pursue justice. And it's like a Hollywood movie, and you're going to win, right? Like Superman's going to fly in and take the bad guy off the face of the planet, or the bad person, I should say. But that's not the reality, unfortunately. And the reality is I think that us as family members, we really need to get together along with self-advocates, right, and other supporters and really address this issue head on. And there's a couple ways to do that. And that's what I've been learning. And so, Nicole, I was between jobs from about May to November this year, and I probably spent 80% of my free time advocating. This is in my blood. I want to make sure that we are addressing this issue. I'm one person with a lot of people supporting the Natalie Project. We have over 40 advisory council members from across the United States. And I want to make sure that we're trying to address this issue because I don't think enough is being done. And that's really changed my whole life. So.
Can you explain how deeply your family is affected by the sexual assault? And please look into the camera so no one else goes through horrific event the way you and your sister and your family had to do it.
This assault affected everybody in the family. And this is a great question. My mom had to take on 24/7 care of Natalie every day. And I would talk to my mom. And the only respite my mom would get is when Natalie was at her day program. And that was stripped away from my mom, who's worked so hard. My mom deserves so much more. And the stupid system, I'm sorry, I'm getting very upset, but the system.
Yeah.
The system didn't provide any supports. I read Natalie's case file and it said, family doesn't want to send her to another program. You know, generally that's what it said. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we can't. Because Natalie is going to get abused again, and we cannot let that happen. I vowed to my mom's parents, my grandparents, that we would always keep Natalie safe. And we have vowed that we will never have our sister in a group home, ever. We have vowed that to our family. And the reality of that is the fact that she'll be hurt and can't tell us. And that is not good. My younger sister, Patricia, gave up her life. And let me just say, we love Natalie. We want to take care of Natalie, but my younger sister became Natalie's 24/7 support along with my mother. And I did leave this part out, but to get Natalie back into a program, we did send Natalie to another program, and we made sure that my younger sister, Patricia, worked there and kept an eye on Natalie when she was there, and some other incident happened where they both had to leave. But you know, our lives revolve around making sure Natalie is safe, supported, and gets to live her life, right? Free of abuse. So it's affected all of us. My parents are divorced. So my dad at the time was not in the picture. And he is, you know, very angry, but my mom and I were the ones that teamed up, hired a lawyer for the settlement. And I've been, you know, advocating ever since, because it's not fair. It was not fair. Somebody needs to apologize to our family about how they let this happen. And I'm very vocal around it, and it's happening, but yet nobody will stand up within the system and take responsibility, which is incredibly frustrating to me. So again, I've relied on the simple fact that we can't trust the system, that we as family members need to stand together and say, we're not going to put up with this, and we need to demand better, and we need to demand a better system across the United States. Quite honestly, we need a cohesive system.
Yeah. Why is sexual assault a big no-no? Because no one talks about it. And in the special needs or the disability community. And why don't we talk about this more in our culture and modern society? The integration between sexual assault and people with disabilities.
You know, Nicole, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, it stemmed from ableism. And I'm learning more about this topic. And every day I try to do better, you know, as a person. I live in a hybrid world. I live in a world that's disability advocacy, and I live in a world that views people with disabilities, you know, as childlike, as infants, as, oh, nobody would hurt somebody with a disability. And these are all false assumptions. Given the fact that sexual assault in the disability community is epidemic, and that people with disabilities are 7 times more likely than somebody without disabilities to be sexually assaulted, means we need to tool up our community even more. In California, there's the California Healthy Youth Act, which is basically sex education. You're supposed to have sex education in middle school and high school, I believe, from what I read. And it's supposed to be accessible for people with disabilities. And my understanding is that people with disabilities are not receiving sex education. So that is the biggest issue right there. So we have ableism. And then we have the fact that sex education is not being offered in certain settings and that it is not accessible in one of the communities that needs it the most. But my sister's higher support needs, right? We could teach Natalie about sex education. We could check a box. But quite frankly, over 80% of people with disabilities live with their families. Yeah. Families need to be tooled up and understand, number one, the sexual assault epidemic. What is it? What's going on? What is sexual assault? It could be touching or not touching, right? And it's done without consent by the person that's involved, and that's horrible. In my sister's medical report from the hospital, it says Natalie has gonorrhea and she cannot consent to sex, and nobody filed the mandated report. Nobody. Somebody read that and didn't do their job. Also, Nicole, there's, you talk to your friends. Oh, hey, did you see so-and-so? Or, what do you think their relationship is like? Are they going on a date? Have they kissed yet? Oftentimes what I'm learning is people with disabilities, right, don't have those same social interactions that the rest of society does. And that needs to happen. And there's awesome organizations out there like Elevate Us, who does a train the trainer program for sex education. There's another program, Mad Hatter Wellness, and accessible sexual health that are trying to address this. We had Seeds Therapy in San Diego. We want to address this issue. And I think it's time to really tool up with educators in every community and make sure with people with disabilities are getting sex ed and that families are getting educated about sexual abuse. And again, it comes from ableism, right? So that's why it's not being discussed. Nobody wants to think that somebody who has support needs could be a victim of a crime, especially sexual assault. And also, let me just share, people like my sister Natalie who have higher support needs rely on somebody to take care of their hygiene and to help prepare her food so she can feed herself and to help assist her get some exercise and take a walk. My sister relies on supports, and we have to trust those supports so that she could live her best life in accordance to the Lanterman Act.
So the last question is, what is being done to prevent this from happening to others, people, or to bring the predators to justice?
I've learned a lot from Dr. Nora Baladarian, and prevention's hard, risk reduction's easy. Let's reduce the risks. And that is what she talks about. We say prevention, but really it's what do we do to reduce the risk of sexual abuse, right? The Natalie Project just delivered its first 2 workshops last week with a family services nonprofit out of Monterey County, and it was really successful, and I learned a lot through that project. But the goal of the workshop that I delivered was to let families know about the epidemic and what to do to be prepared. So the Natalie Project is actually in the middle of finishing a guide that we are going to produce and disseminate for free to families who have loved ones with disabilities, Nicole. And it's going to walk you through Dr. Nora Baladarian's 10 steps, which gave me the most help and support when we were managing Natalie's case, right? I also want to share with listeners and viewers that the Natalie Project is teamed up with Professor Alan Colburn with Arizona State University and Dr. Nora Baladarian of the Disability Without Abuse Project. We actually updated Nora's disability and abuse survey from over 10 years ago. She had, I think, about 7,000 responses. We're in the middle of translating this disability abuse survey. It's national. We're translating it into American Sign Language right now. So it'll be in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language. And so our goal through the survey is to get more information and then share the results of that survey for free. I'm also producing a short documentary called Natalie. It's about Natalie and her 40th birthday. It's about a 24-minute film, and we're going to be releasing that film next year. Just to share about Natalie's beautiful life. And I, as her sister, Nicole, learned a lot about Natalie in the film and who she is and what she likes and doesn't like. And you really see her personality shine through. It was an inclusive film done with Options for All and their film and media studio out of San Jose. And we have an amazing director, David F. Fortune, who is we're putting the finishing touches on that film right now. So right now, the Natalie Project, we're focused on a survey. It's anonymous. So if somebody has a story and they want to get that story out and they want to be anonymous, please, when the survey comes out, we would love for you to complete that and have your story count. Bringing predators to justice is hard. And here's why. The justice system protects perpetrators and burdens victims. And that is why education is really so important for families and for us to come together to demand better. What I will share with you is the Natalie Project. I, separate from the Natalie Project, worked with a woman who's running for state senate right now. Her name is Marisol Rubio. She's running in the East Bay. And we had a resolution prioritized by the California Democratic Party. And the resolution basically said, look, any claim for abuse that is settled with taxpayer dollars. So Nicole, you understand the system is federal and state funds, so it's public money. My sister's settlement was public taxpayer money. We were paid out to be quiet, not name the place, not name how much money. Although now, because of a bill, I believe it's SB 820 that Senator Connie Leyva had done, it's no longer a secret. We could have talked about it. But what we want to make sure happens is that when there is a settlement involving a person with a disability with taxpayer money, that information is now reported to the state attorney general. And we need a report that talks about how rampant abuse is. Is it financial abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse? There's a beautiful report by a professor at Stanford about accountability and transparency in the system. When we learned that Natalie was a survivor of sexual abuse at this program, we don't know what the program did to investigate. We don't know if they changed their policies and practices. We don't know if they even tried to figure out who the perpetrator was and if that person is still out there in a caregiving role. But we need to demand that the system asks vendors where this is happening, what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again so our loved one is safe? And how do we get the perpetrator out of the caregiving system? That is really what we need to do. And so we are asking, and what we'd like to do with the law is make sure that each settlement, let's say you have a settlement for $80,000, that's matched in a prevention fund. And we start funding prevention and education or risk reduction and education in the system. And we start formalizing a group in California to address this issue. I know there's a work group in Arizona. If you're familiar, there was a woman in Arizona who's pregnant and suddenly was giving birth, and she was, in a comatose state. So unfortunately, this happens a lot, and not enough is being done to ask for accountability and transparency in the system.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Oh, thanks. I'm just a ticked off sister. I'm her big sister. I'm her protector.
Yeah.
I want to be everybody's big sister. I'm one person with a lot of support. And I feel like I've done quite a bit, and there's more work to be done. And there's a lot more supporters out there who are coming forward. I think, I think Nicole is councilwoman, as council people with the State Council on Disabilities in California.
Yeah.
We've successfully prioritized safety within the council and with our legislative efforts. And I think it's incredibly important that we keep safety top of mind and we explore what can we do under safety to make sure people with disabilities truly are safe out in the community. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julie Neward, my friend. Thank you for coming on to the Nono Show. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can do more together.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me on the No No Show.
Thank you.